what's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we're going to rank the discography of Ukrainian band Nocturnal Mortem. And hey, if you'd like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Alright, let's talk some Nocturnal Mortem, and we're going to start all the way back at the beginning with Lunar Poetry in 1996. This is a pretty standard black metal album for the time, like very much clearly influenced by these second wave black metal bands coming out of Norway in particular, but also Sweden. And so it's fun. I mean, it's a pretty solid album in that right. And it's got some really cool synth in particular. I think is sort of the highlight. I hear a lot of like Emperor kind of influencing this album. But there's still like even some of those kind of atmospheric and sort of folky elements that pop up here and there that become more important to the sound later. I think this song in particular, Perun's Celestial Silver, is a standout. But overall, it's kind of an unremarkable album, is the biggest point against it, because it's taking so much from those other albums. It's like if I wanted to listen to this style, I'd generally go listen to, you know, Dark Throne or Early Enslaved or Dark Medieval Times, you know, something like that. So yeah, it's a solid album, not a bad album. Doesn't have really like major standout tracks, so I'm gonna put that one at C and move forward to Goat Horns. It's kind of the first proper album. It's a lot of, I guess people consider Lunar Poetry to be more of a demo, depending on what site you're looking at, and Goat Horns is kind of the first real Nocturnal Mortem album. And it has a little bit more of their own kind of touch and flair on it. The production's a little stronger. Still overall a pretty typical black metal album, I'd say. I do love this cover art. I think it kind of encapsulates them in their earlier years. It's got some decent tracks on it, though. Koyavia. This is very mournful, very dense. The bass drum on this album reminds me a lot of early Gorgoroth, with that kind of like wet cardboard sound. So when I say better production, I don't mean like good production. It's still that raw second wave kind of production. I like the church bells on this one. Again, the symphonic synthesizer elements are definitely the highlight here. Unholy Orathania, good track too. More of that kind of folky elements. This track also reminds me of playing like old 90s like real-time strategy games like Warcraft. It's the type of song I'd expect to hear in that, which isn't a jab. Like, I love that stuff. So yeah, it's got its moments. Vele Scrolls. It's kind of a faster, more driving song. Yeah, just very aggressive. I like the vocals on this album, too. Just very, like, gurgly, vomity kind of stuff. And then Polyata is another solid kind of folky sounding one. I like that style. But again, there are better Nocturnal Mortem albums. This isn't one I'd go back and re-listen to a ton. I'm going to put that one as C as well. But it is a little bit better than Lunar Poetry, so consider that to be more of like a C+, whereas Lunar Poetry is kind of just a C. And let's keep going to the Gates of Blasphemous Fire in 1999. I really like this album. There's interviews with the band that talk about how this was kind of not the album they really wanted to make, but I recall that kind of they felt like the label was pushing them this way. So you notice the production is a lot more like modern, and there's a lot more sheen on it. It's a lot more like glossy and clean sounding, which I think works well for it. This song in particular, On Moonlight Path, I really love from it. But yeah, I guess they don't like it as much. I quite enjoy it for their kind of more straight up black metal material, because that is basically what this is. There's very little like bells and whistles on here, but as just a straight black metal record, it's pretty solid. Like, it's balls to the wall, just aggressive. Sounds like hellfire burning all the time, and still those symphonic flourishes. So again, kind of getting those early Emperor vibes in particular. Bestial summoning, the Hands of Chaos. Yeah, not as much kind of like the folky, kind of more whimsical elements on this album. But all said and done, I enjoy listening to this album, because one thing it has is that it's very consistent. Like, every track is of kind of almost equal quality. I can listen to it from start to finish, and so for that reason I end up going back to it a lot. It's not my favorite Nocturnal Mortem album, but it's up there in terms of re-listenability, so I'm going to put that one at A. And let's go on to Nechrist. Now, Nechrist, I feel like, is a very divisive record. It seems like people either love it or hate it. I really enjoy it. There are some huge, like, standout tracks on this album. Especially this opener, the Funeral Wind Born in Oriana. You get this horn intro and a lot more atmosphere. Like, this is where I feel like Nocturnal Mortem really starts sounding like Nocturnal Mortem proper. And they start to really carve out their niche. There's a lot more of kind of the folk elements on here, in addition to still being very aggressive, but it's also a very chaotic album. Like, it's kind of a whirlwind of an album that is very noisy, but also has these fun little, like, gypsy hoedowns, I'll call them, with the strings and the fiddles and the flutes and everything. And they'll seem to come out of nowhere. Like, it's a fun album for that. But yeah, some people just absolutely hate it for those same reasons, and then some more, I think. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But also great, like, thrashy guitars in some spots, like here on Night Before the Fight. Very aggressive track. But then also, again, calling back to early symphonic black metal. That almost sounds like an early, like, Dimmu Borgir synth part. Decent dynamics, too. But yeah, very, very chaotic and intense. Perun's Celestial Silver, another standout. Another folkier track with a lot of atmosphere. I love the, like, nature sounds they put into it, which becomes more and more a theme as we go along here. So cool flutes on that one. Building into this again, kind of like Bathory-esque kind of guitar. The guitar tone on this album is just really intense and just rugged. Then they got some, like, acoustic sections. So yeah, all over the place. And then you got Black Raven, Death Damnation. There's some really cool stuff on here. It's got some questionable stuff too, which I'm not going to delve into in this video, but suffice it to say they said and lyrically did some things as young people do sometimes, that are not really acceptable, as you can kind of see with the title right here. So do with that what you will, and if you want to dig more into that, you totally can. But since then, they have turned a new leaf and have kind of left that behind them. They even made a big statement about it. But anyways, just talking about the music here, Nechrist, really solid album, almost an A, a little bit inconsistent though. It's not quite as consistent as To the Gates of Blasphemous Fire. So I'm going to put it as a B, even though I feel like it has more standout tracks. So it's kind of a little bit of a conundrum in that way. But let's keep going here to Worldview. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this in their actual native tongue. Yeah, unreadable. But here's where Nocturnal Mortem kind of take what they did on Nechrist and sort of hone it into something a little bit more focused, a little bit more serious. It's less chaotic. A lot more like Viking imagery on this one, as you can even see on kind of the cover. But a lot more just epic. I feel like taking some notes from Moonsorrow in particular on this album. This is 2005. So yeah, if you like Moonsorrow, then this is the era of Nocturnal Mortem you're probably going to want to spend the most time with, because there's a lot of that in here. The solid opening track. The title track has more of this great, like, again, those gypsy dance-alongs. I just picture, like, a caravan with a bunch of people with, like, their streaming gowns, and they're, like, dancing around. Also some, like, pagan imagery picking up on. The guitars sound bigger. Like, the production sounds, but the drums sound bigger, too. You can hear dun 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 dun, just echoing on, a lot more reverb. A lot more space in the production. So I feel like, whereas Nechrist is where they started sounding like themselves, this is where they really kind of honed in on specifically the direction they would be headed from here on out. And a lot more folk elements, I would say. I like this guitar too. This is another one of my personal favorites of theirs. But yeah, lots of great riffs mixed in again with solid additional instrumentation from strings and fiddles. Here's where they could even kind of fit in with, you know, doing a tour with like Encephalum or Equilibrium or something. If they would have them. I'm not sure that they would, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, unfortunately. But hey, you know, we all do dumb stuff when we're young, and you got to give people a chance to move past it. Seems like they have too. Yeah, another good track here. Very powerful album. I like this one quite a bit. The only thing that kind of drags it down is it is an hour and 14 minutes, and while they do longer albums, this one feels a little bit bloated and inconsistent. Kind of the second half starts to feel a little bit less interesting and a little bit more of a slog for me personally. So I like it a lot. And the standout tracks are some of their best, but it's got enough kind of issues with it that I still would put it at B tier. Probably a little bit above Nechrist, but they're close. They're kind of neck and neck there. Yeah, and then we're going to go to the big daddy here. Oh man. Voice of Steel in 2009. So if I recommended you to listen to Nocturnal Mortem, chances were it was with this album, because this, spoiler alert, is their best album, if you ask me. It is so good. It's the album that got me into them, and it just does everything that they've been trying to do at this point the best. The best by far. They bring back this like crazy atmospheric horn intro with the nature sounds, kind of like from Nechrist. But the build in here is just so much more powerful. It's sort of combining some elements of Nechrist with Worldview. And again, this is where they start to move in a much kind of more mature direction, I'd say, with the songwriting and the lyrics. And sort of shift their attention away from some of that other stuff, edgelord stuff, so to speak. And man, this title track, I could talk all day about how good it is. But particularly though, this opening string part. Oh, so stunning. I get like goosebumps listening to it. And then it builds into this, those backup vocals. Again, more of that like Moonsorrow vibe at this point. They're really just owning it. But the songwriting is just off the charts here at this point. Big solos, all the performances across the board. Like, you can tell they really spent a lot of time. The flute section here. If you want something faster, we got Valkyrie. Again, still calling back to kind of their symphonic black metal roots, but taking it to just much higher places. And I've seen some recordings of them doing this stuff live, and it's just incredible. Like, I would love to see this stuff performed. Kind of more of a rock and roll psychedelic solo here. I feel like at this point too, a little bit more of that like enslaved element is creeping in with those proggy sections. Ukraine. Great intro with the fiddles on that one. Building into the guitars again. Everything just builds together so much better. Like, it's all connected at this point. And I love this singing part. This may be their first section of clean singing. I could be wrong about that. There might be some on the last album, I forget. But just a really stunning song. By Path of the Sun, another great one. Great drum intro on this one. Almost sounds like we're about to go into like an Amon Amarth song. More great flutes. Yeah, just really doing the folk metal thing at this point with the, again, the prog and the still black metal. My Dream Island's another good one. More of like an equilibrium track here with the big atmosphere and everything. I love this album. I could talk about it all day. Obviously, it has to go at S tier. There's no other place it could go. That is absolutely where it belongs. And then let's finish things off with their most recent album, which is 2017's Verity. An album I waited for a long, long time and was very hyped about because obviously this came out 2009. It took them 8 years. 8 years to get out Verity. But you know what? It was worth it. It was worth the wait. I actually have it on my shelf. I got the beautiful booklet style version with the booklet inside, and it's kind of like a hardcover. I love those. That's my favorite style of kind of case you can pick up. But aside from the beautiful album art, it's just a gorgeous album. It's very much in line with Voice of Steel, and even though it's another hour and 15-minute album, they do it so much better with this one, because at this point, like, they've really tightened up their songwriting, and they knew what they wanted to do with this, and they took a lot of time on it. A lot of cool stuff on here with piano, mandolin parts. But yeah, this opening track, Molfa. You may also notice they changed their logo at this point to this more like pagan kind of naturistic one. And again, that kind of went along with their statement that they're sort of entering a new phase and wanted to leave behind some of that other stuff. More great like gypsy folk sounding stuff here. But yeah, they ditched the like upside down cross, more satanic looking logo, and again, the more questionable lyrics, and went full force on this one. Love this little flute hook on here. And again, the piano. Lots of big builds on this album. Again, I feel like going very much in line with kind of what Moonsorrow have been doing for some time now. But with their own spin on it. Like, they don't sound like a Moonsorrow clone either by any stretch. They have their own twist on it. Wild Wereguild, another one of my personal favorites. I love these kind of cascading, they almost sound like raindrops. The piano and kind of synth elements here. Or like sparkling stars. Great gang vocals there. Again, doing kind of the Viking stuff. That also reminds me of like Heilung. If you haven't listened to Heilung, you should check them out too. Hey! Love that. And then some of the tracks that aren't necessarily my favorites, but are still plenty good. Spruce Elder. Lyra, which was a more of that sound. I love that effect with the synth or whatever that is. It might be like a special kind of piano type thing. That was a single. Wolfish Berries was another single that kind of got us hyped up for this. So yeah, big album, and it's hard to pull off, like, you know, an hour and 15-minute album. I feel like most bands fall flat on their face when they try to do something like that. The vast majority, there are definitely those that can do it, but Nocturnal Mortem knocked it out of the park. I wouldn't say it's quite S tier, because I just love Voice of Steel so much, but it's definitely A tier. And so there you kind of have it, and if you want to hear me kind of rank these in order, ignoring sort of the tiers, then it is, you know, Lunar Poetry is last, then Goat Horns, then Nechrist, then Worldview, then, interestingly enough, To the Gates of Blasphemous Fire, and then Verity, and then, of course, Voice of Steel at the top of the pack. And that's it. Those are my Nocturnal Mortem rankings. But now let me know down in the comments if you're somebody who's listened to Nocturnal Mortem, because they're definitely more of an obscure band. Let me know what's your favorite album. How would you rank them? Also support us on Patreon. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.